Welcome to For Collectors.
Good evening, baseball fans, and welcome to For Collectors. My name is Dan. I have a channel called Dan's Vintage Baseball PC, but I am a very proud member of the For Collectors team. Happy to be back this week. If you saw my video from 2 days ago, now I'm back again. That's because this particular video kind of came up through a bunch of private discussions with two gentlemen who I will bring on shortly. But what I want to do is I want to play some clips, and then we'll bring them on and we'll see. This clip kind of set off a firestorm a couple of weeks ago. Let me just play what this is.
You just go down the line, and we'll just show you down the line. But it's the same all the way across the board. There's no question that my sixes, my sevens, and my eights are way better than these higher grade cards that were graded earlier. So again, I think that PSA needs to be transparent. They don't have to do anything. They're making a boatload of money, and they have raised the standards for the card collecting industry. But with responsibility and that the reward that they've gone, their responsibility is to be transparent. And there's no transparency at PSA right now.
All right, let me play another one.
I do think there is a disparity in the way the hobby views newer graded cards versus older cards. And this is really mainly in the vintage world, because ultra modern is all new anyway. But when you're looking at vintage cards and you're thinking about, well, this was graded, long ago at this certain standard, and it received a great grade, and then today's standard would receive this grade. I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cards that would not get the same grade today as they did back in the day. Does that mean I shouldn't collect them or have them? Like, oh, well, these aren't graded, under today's standards, so they're flawed cards, or they're not as good of cards, and you send them back in and have them regrade it and see how you feel. And I'm just glad I have the card. And I think I have nice copies of those cards. Are some of them overgraded? Of course. Are some of my newer submissions undergraded, in my opinion? Yes, of course. But that would have been true whether they've changed the standards or not. It's just gotten worse. It's just made it even more prevalent. It just happens more often. So does it affect the set registry? Yeah, probably. Should any of us lose a wink of sleep over that? No, I don't.
We got one more.
Oh boy. Again, that's the thing. Oh boy. Are they really grading harder? Well, there was a video that was done recently. I reposted it on this channel, where a guy took a bunch of high grade vintage cards and he snapped them all out and he sent them back in to see, are they actually grading harder? And it wasn't like one or two cards. It was like 40 cards. Let's just look at a clip of this.
Well, we've looked at the clip. Now we'll bring on the two gentlemen who we just saw. Good evening, Mike. Good evening, Greg. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not buying any more graded cards ever after that.
I'm great.
So that guy, Jon English, kind of set a firestorm, I think, because he did what is probably financially a bad decision. And I think he knew that going in, that all of these 8s and 9s were going to come back. He was going to crack them out. He was going to send them to PSA, and they were all going to come back. And there were hundreds of them, and they came back almost always with a lower grade. Sometimes 2, sometimes 3, sometimes even 4 grades lower. And so my first question is to you, Mike, and I think you've already said this on your video, that have grading standards changed?
Yes.
PSA, right?
Yes.
I mean, PSA, a slab that was graded in 2000 is a completely different standard than a card that's graded in 2025. Is that a fair statement?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I said it. It's different, and I don't know that that's. First of all, what are we going to do about it? That's my big question. Is so what? I mean, I can't change it. They didn't ask me. Nat's not calling me, going, "Hey, Mike, what do you think we should do here?" Right? Do I? The whole video was I don't care, so I'm not going to change that stance now. I still don't care. I still love all of my cards. But what I think is the point is what Greg made in his video that you guys saw the snip of is, okay, now what for my wife or my kids, or if they want to sell them and they have really nice looking cards that are very undergraded. I think it's more worried about the undergrading than the overgrading. Do you agree, Greg? Like if your card got an 8, 10 years ago, do you really, you're not going to go, well, it's only worth what a 6 is worth or a 5.
Yeah, for resale value, I'm not worried about my overgraded cards. I'm that is not a factor that is of concern when selling.
Right.
But Mike, you said in there, and this is the conversation that started between you and I, was that I take the position that this really, at this point, it becoming so obvious and so objectively provable that it really creates a problem for the set registry. And you said in that video, it doesn't really matter, and I think it does. So why do you think that these drastic changes in grading standards that are provable and objectively available for information, as we see from this video from Jon English, why do you think that doesn't affect the set registry?
Well, I know the set registry, it depends on what you're in the set registry for. I look at it for what I'm in it for. Okay. So my perspective comes from a personal involvement in the set registry, and it's just fun for me. It's a game. And I know you said this off air that it's not a game. And there are some business reasons why I would love to hear you go through all of your reasons why you think it does matter to the industry. And I'm probably not going to disagree with any of those. But for me personally, the registry has always been a fun way to, a different way to enjoy the hobby, a different way to compare. We got to remember, I've been doing the set registry from before there was YouTube, before I had things like Showcase Showdown where I could compare my collection to Chris from Missouri's, for example, or someone else. That was a way to go, oh, where do I stand? Do I want to, is that a priority to be better? And we look, what percent of the collections are actually in the set registry that are PSA graded? 2%, 5%, 10%? It's a very small percentage of people that actually use the registry for what its intended purpose is. If I'm number 3 in a vintage set, if everybody that was in the world that had those cards that fit that set, I'd be like number 428, And so as much as anything, I just enjoy doing it. I use it as a checklist. I use it as a completionist and find different fun ways to collect, like Texas Rangers Hall of Famer, blah, blah, blah. Pick your weird esoteric set that's in the registry that I've decided to go after because it's just fun. It's just a different way to collect. But I want to hear your thoughts on why it matters so much.
I think we're getting ahead of it, but I'll get back to that certainly. But I just wanted to get Greg's take on, is it something we believe pretty much across the board? If you grade with PSA in 2025, your card is getting a different grade from what it would have gotten in 2020, let's say.
Is that something I believe, or the three of us believe,
Yeah.
or the community believes?
Or is it? I mean, do you believe? Do you agree with me that it's objectively provable at this point?
100%. 2.5 years ago, I made a video that explained the difference between a first, second, third, fourth, all the way to 10th generation slab. And the whole hypothesis was it mattered because when a card was graded affects how it was graded and the standard at which it was graded. So we need to know when a card was graded, because SGC on their website, they post when a card was graded. PSA won't do that. And so because they don't disclose that information, and because I think they've gotten increasingly more difficult, I think it's important to try to gather information to determine how valuable that grade actually is. A card that was graded last month, that is important information to know when determining from a distance on a picture on eBay, on a listing, whether that 8, what sort of condition that 8 is actually in. And if you know that it's a first generation slab, you know that it was graded under a different standard. And so there might be, there's a higher chance that there are things that are affecting that card and the quality of that card than meets the eye. Doesn't mean it is automatically, but it's information that I think people need when making purchases, is to understand that. And I've done a bunch of videos on this, and people are starting to beat me up for beating the dead horse. The problem is it's not a universally accepted thing yet. It might be with us, it might be within the small YouTube community, but there are a lot of people out there who see a 7 and they don't even see that there's a difference in the flip style. They don't even know that it was graded 30 years ago versus 30 days ago. And so the reason I continue to beat the dead horse is because I consider my channel, part of the goal is to be a consumer advocate for collectors, to be informing people of things that are potential minefields ahead of them. And if you just go to the National and you just buy a 7 because it says it's a 7 and you think that's the same as a 7 that was graded a month ago, it's actually not. And it should be, but it's not. And people need to know that. And there are a lot of people who don't know that. So I'll continue to beat the dead horse.
Well, I'll show it later because I have one of the cards that I have out. I have a little story about that, where I tried to talk a dealer into a lower price because it was a super old slab and the 4 was not a 4, it was really a 2. And this guy did not want to hear any of it. It was financially motivated, obviously. But at first he looked at me like I had 3 heads. Like, what was I talking about? And, Jeremy Lee had the night of the heritage auction where the $12.9 million card sold. He was also showing 2 cards that are instructive. One was the 1961 Will Chamberlain rookie card in a 10 that was selling for something like $800,000. And it was a 10 that was off-centered. And then he showed in the same exact auction, there was an 8 that was selling for like $80,000. Like, it was 10x to the 10 grade. And the 8 was a better looking card. I mean, and the 8 was a new grade. The 10 was an old grade. And there's somebody spending $800 some $1,000 because they believe the number more than they believe the card. It's like that's a problem. And that's my second point, is the effects of it. What does the effect of grading standards having changed affect us in the hobby? And I think it has a lot of effects. Mike, you talked about this a little bit in your video, where like people know an old slab is something you want to avoid if the card, it's something that gives you a momentary doubt when you see an old slab, right? Essentially.
Yeah, but I still look at the card, right? I think a fool and his money are soon parted, right? I mean, you get a guy who doesn't know and just buying the grade and not buying the card. Brad's vintage baseball cards. He did a video recently or wrote a comment that we're going to look at a card before we buy it way more than the grader ever looked at it to grade it. Yep. We're going to look at it a lot longer ourselves, deciding, is this the card for this particular, is this the specimen of this card that we want to have in our PCs, in our collections? And I mean, Greg, you have a mountain of evidence in your personal collection of cards you've bought that were beautiful for the particular numerical grade that they received. I think I do too. I think a lot of us that care about that know that and do that, right? I want to buy a 4 that looks like a 6. I want to buy a 3 that looks like a 5. I want to, and I want to pay 3 prices. And Greg's point of his video was, we all want to do that on the buying end. None of us want to sell our 3 for the 5, for the 3 prices. We want to sell it for what the card looks like. And there is so much more technology now in grading that I think is being, let me say this. The guy, Jon English, right? He talked about the transparency needed by collectors or PSA or SGC for that matter, in terms of how that grade was determined. Do you guys watch Sports Card Professor now? I've gotten into his stuff. He's a pretty interesting dude. And he had a PSA employee on. Did y'all see this video?
I did not. No.
I did. Yes.
Okay. So he had this former PSA employee. Very funny interview, interesting interview. But what I'll say is about that is, man, I really want my cards to get graded Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, because if I could request that on the thing, I would do that, because these guys and gals, whoever the graders, they are being absolutely put through the grind in terms of hours worked. And, so they're looking at so many cards. And if it's Friday at midnight, which is they're, running multiple shifts, and it just sounds like torture. Truly, it just sounds like a slave camp that they're running over at PSA. And I don't want that, there's so much that goes into it. Are they having a bad day? Are they tired? Are they this? Are they that? And unfortunately, the human element, I shouldn't say even unfortunately, it's just a fact that the human element is a part of the grading process. And that's why I think, who was it at PSA, Greg? Ryan Hogue, whatever his name, that he says it can grade a 6 or an 8 or a this. And it's almost like they're flippant about it. Like they don't care, which I don't think they do, but they don't understand the back end of Greg's video of showing the different Unitas rookies. I really watched your video with great intent there, Greg, just so
thank you.
Well,
thanks, Mike.
It's your luck, Mike, that we have some of those cards right in the video.
But he showed the vast difference between the cost or the price of an 8 that's a 6, or a 6, and we've always known that it's been dramatic, which is why I've never paid the 10 tax. I don't like to pay the 10 tax. There's no point, because you can get a 9 or an 8 that looks just as good. To your point earlier, Dan, about the Chamberlain rookie.
So what do we have here, Greg?
So that's a 1960 Topps Jim Brown, which is an important card. It's his 3rd card. Really well centered. Really nice corners. I did have someone in the comments say that card doesn't look like it even should be a 4. It should be less than that, which I wasn't sure if he was being serious or not, because the only thing I could see on there where somebody might say, well, what's going on, is the top right-hand portion and left-hand portion of the image. It looks like there's a little staining or some sort of water bleed there. Those are clouds. Those are on all the images. So if you look at the edges of that card and the back, you can see it the best because it's got the green. It's a very, very clean card, and it got a 4. If you read the description on PSA of what a 4 should look like, it wouldn't describe that card. I bought the card because I saw it, and he was charging 4 prices. I know exactly where I was when I bought it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's the nicest 4 on earth. I'm going to go buy that card at 4 prices. And I'm okay with, it's the guy who buys the house on a busy street and then he wants to sell it and he can't sell it for comp because it's on a busy street. the busy street is the low grade. So I do want to have my cake and eat it too. But the point that I'm tried to throw out there in that video was we have to think about that, because when you buy the house on the busy street, you have to go, well, someday someone's going to sell this house on the busy street and they're probably not going to get full value for it because it's on a busy street. So I think there's a lot of us that like to buy undergraded cards, but I'm just trying to bring into awareness. The goal of the video was, don't forget, this is a potential issue that someday you or someone else will potentially face.
Well, let me play devil's advocate with you, Greg, because and this isn't meant to be like contradictory to what you're saying, but I'll bring up a point that other people will bring up. Well, you bought the 4, you chose to buy the 4, and it had that grade on it when you bought it. It looks fantastic for the grade, but that's on you, not on.
I have a response to that. Go ahead.
Well, you can't look, it's a 4, whether you like it or not, or agree with it or not, it's got a 4 on it. You want it, if you want to sell a 6 later, if you want your family to be able to sell a 6, buy a 6. And this is just what people are going to say. And they're going to argue that. Now, could you get more than your average 4 for this 4? Yes. People are wising up and they're getting above comp prices for better looking examples of that numerical grade, right? That's happening a lot. I do that. I buy cards like that. You'll do that sometimes. Dan does it. Sounds so bad. The savvy collector will go, hey, that looks really, really good for what it is, what it says it is, right? I'm going to pay a little bit more than your average 4 comp. Now, if I can get it for 4 comps, great. But to expect your family or whatever to be able to take advantage of what the way the card looks down the road is, when you bought the busy house on the street, you knew it was on a busy street. You weren't, that's not a surprise. You
100%.
knew that, this is a 4.
100%. And I'm readily admitting that. And I said in the video like 3 times, I want to have my cake and eat it too. And I say in the thumbnail, I said, this is a dilemma. And I totally understand that perspective. And it's absolutely right that I am wanting to buy undergraded cards, but I don't want to sell them at the undergraded grade. And that's exactly right. Again, the goal for me is not to get anyone to feel sorry for me or to say that it should sell for 6 prices even. I'm just trying to bring awareness to people that when you buy an undergraded card, this is one of the ramifications potentially down the road that we'll all find ourselves, because I think a lot of us don't think about that piece of it. We think about the addition to our collections, but a lot of the times when we're buying cards, we should have some foresight about the ramifications of that purchase. And I hear everybody say buy the card, not the grade, but I don't ever hear anybody say, but remember, if you do that, you're going to have to sell the grade, not the card. And my goal was to equip viewers and other collectors of that potential dilemma in which they find themselves. I think personally, and I might be getting ahead of where Dan is going, but what I think is happening is, because the shift has been so great, that card would have been a 7 in 1995. My dad submitted so many cards to PSA in the late 90s and early 2000s. It's just hundreds of cards. That card would be at least a 7, maybe an 8 back then. And what I am trying to do again is I'm trying to help share my thoughts with other collectors of possible things to consider. And a thing that I think that we really need to start considering is the grade doesn't really mean that much anymore. That's ultimately the answer. Is when you buy a card, my dad will find a card and he'll go, he's been looking for a 57 tops mantle, well-centered, but 57 tops mantle. He'll see one. He'll go, I want this card, but my gosh, it's overpriced by $800. And I go, for the grade, it's overpriced by $800. But if it didn't have a grade, you would think that was a fair price. So are you willing to overpay for it? And so what I think the ultimate fallout eventually is going to be, and we're just, I think, in the early stages of accepting the fact that the grades are very much just a ballpark. They're not an exact science anymore because they've done that to themselves. They have used technology. And as soon as you change the technology, just like I said with the claret jug, there's a guy who sits there and carves it, and it's the same guy every year, so it looks consistent. As soon as you change the technology, as soon as you change your method, as soon as you use Gemimint and you start using AI to help you, then things are different, which is going to result in your grades don't really mean as much as they used to. They still mean something. They still mean something because a 5 means it doesn't have a crease or a wrinkle. I know that. So that is a line in the sand that I can use. If it has a 2.5, it doesn't have a pinhole. So I know now that there's not a pinhole if I see some little markup there. There are things I can use, but the grade means less right now than it's ever been. And Dan used the point in the video. He said it was supposed to be the grade equalizer. Grading was intended to kind of make it where the dealer didn't have all the power. And it was supposed to equalize a new collector with a savvy dealer. But now we've eroded down the value of what a grade actually means. And I think we're getting back to where we used to be, which is a well-centered, high eye appeal card is worth just mountains ahead. And I know a lot of us make fun of like the NBA stickers and stuff or the eye appeal stickers. But there's a reason that they add value when people buy, because it's additional information. And I think that the grades just mean less than they've ever meant. And that's the end result of what the changes in the grading procedures has done.
Yeah, exactly. and the having your cake and eating it too thing, I think is incredibly unfair because, and Mike made references, the savvy collector. You were a savvy collector. You made a good decision. You did your research. You used your eyes. And now they want to hamper you by saying you can't sell this card for more than the comps say at a 4. But the reality is you should benefit from the hobby is very much like this all the time. You benefit from good decisions, and you should be able to benefit from a good decision here. And, if it becomes a situation where Jim Brown, you set up at a show and you put a number on this that equals a 5, what a 5 is selling for, and somebody comes up and says, well, I'm looking at VCP and this is a 4, and you can say to them, look at the eye appeal on this, look at the centering on this, it's incredibly undergraded, this is my price, and somebody eventually is going to buy it. I think you're going to be able to get more money for this than the comps are for 4.
It happened to me at the National. I bought my Willie Mays 52 tops in a 1. I paid more than I had paid more in the pandemic, but in the last 3 or 4 years, I guess it was, I can't remember how far I looked back, I paid a record price for a 1.
Yeah,
because it was the best looking one I've ever seen on the front. It had back paper added, but I paid more than I should have. At the end of the day, if I hold that card long enough, assuming I don't die tomorrow, my family's going to reap the benefits of owning that card. A 1, no matter what it is going to be worth more than what I paid for it down the road. That's just truth. And
I think we're in the early stages. I think we're in the very early stages of saying that the grade that we're going to set record prices. I think we're just getting started with it. And the reason I'm beating the horse is because I think there are a lot of people who don't realize that. And what grading was intended to do is not protect the savvy collector. It wasn't designed to protect John Mangini. It was designed to protect Tony Liebrick 4 years ago. When Tony got back into the hobby, Tony was like, oh, that card, that Hank Aaron card is a 7. It's a 7, so it's really nice. Buys it. Well, 2 years later, he's like, man, that thing's way off center. Well, because now he's a more savvy collector. And so the point of grading was the great equalizer for the savvy versus newer collector. It protected those guys. Dylan Double D talks all the time. He loves grading because when he was a kid, he used to get ripped off by the dealers. Yeah. And what grading did is it protected him. And if it's not protecting us or the new collector, it's not protecting the new collector, we need to help create awareness to new collectors that, I know that says a 3.5, but what that really means is somewhere between a 2.5 and a 5. That's really what that means. It's just a ballpark. They're just throwing dart. It's pin the tail on the donkey is what it is.
Sorry about Ted. And I want to make you a little depressed here because you got a 4 that is nicer and better centered than my 5, but of course it's a SGC. But so
looks better than my 6.
That's the problem with that. You know,
and part of it for me is, listen, we all collect for a lot of different reasons, but one of the reasons we all collect is for that rush. We want to rush, you know. Some it's opening packs and pulling a big card, and for some of us it's finding a card that's hard to find. I mean, Dave Blue Jacket doesn't get excited seeing a Carl Yastrzemski. You know, he gets excited seeing a Cons Wieners, you know, card that there's a pop 4 of. But one of the rushes I get is finding a severely undergraded card. Finding that Carl Yastrzemski at 4 prices is a rush for me. And it's part of the fun is it's a treasure hunt to try to find that card that is undergraded so I can have a nicer copy in my collection at an affordable price. And when I sell, I need to be aware that it still has that 4 up at the top right-hand corner.
You know, this card is interesting, though, that it's this particular one that's undergraded. Because having searched for the right copy for this for years, there are so many of these cards that have, like, black print errors, like soot almost like. And it goes across his hat. And there are cards with that stuff all over it that are graded 5s and 6s. And I wouldn't pay for them because I wanted to find a clean one. And you have a clean one here. So whoever graded this doesn't even know not only that they missed it with the corners and the centering and everything, but they don't even know that this is like super clean without the print defects. So, you know, another problem with it with PSA that we're not going to get into is
another thing that was
grading.
In the Professor Sports Cards video that Mike was referencing a second ago, he was saying that at least half of the people that were in the research room, which is where you go before you become a grader, he said at least half of them are Pokemon people. So what that means is, and they're all going up and getting trays of whatever's in front of them. And for some people it's Pokemon and sometimes it's sports cards. So it sounds like there's not a Pokemon area and a sports card area. So you have Pokemon collectors and Pokemon experts that are grading sports cards, according to this interview.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Well, here's the Johnny U.
Do you like that one?
This is fantastic. I mean, I love the color. And you know, all about it. It's all about it, and it's a 5. It's really it's like an 8 or a 9, really. But you know, it was graded a year ago, maybe.
Yeah.
And then there's this.
So there's so many issues with this one. So this is, first of all, it's got the leading 0 on the serial number, so you know it's old. It's also got the grade number and grade description verbiage on the same line, so you know it's old. On the back it says Collector's Universe, so you know it's old. So this is like a generation 4 or 5 slab. Number one, it doesn't fit in, you know, it's just floating around in there. But on the back there's a huge chunk of paper loss, like a huge chunk, and it got a 4. And I literally this weekend, I was packing up a bunch of my cards because I want consistency for the look, for the display of my pirate set. So I'm getting 49 of the 50 cards put into SGC holders. So I literally filled out the form today for this card, and it said for a crossover, what's the minimum grade you'll accept? And I'm like, well, it's a 1.5. So
Yeah.
I guess I put 1.5 because that's what it should get. So for the minimum grade I put is a 1.5. And a lot of people would say you're a complete idiot. You're taking a 4 and you're turning it into an SGC 1.5. And I'm like, yeah, it's not a smart financial decision. It's a complete aesthetic decision. But that card's not a 4. If I sent that card to PSA today, it would get a 1 or a 1.5.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the example of mistake, and we've all seen them with writing on the back or whatever, and they get higher grades because somebody missed it. Comes back all the time. So I took out 2 of my cards. The Cy Young is a 0. It's an old, probably 20, 25 years ago it was graded. It's a 2 in the holder, but it's definitely not a 2 in terms of today's standards. And I just thought I would put it up against the Ed Ruleback, which is also a 2, and it's not a 2. And I've taken the Ruleback, I've taken my magnifying, whatever you call it, the loop, and gone over it. And I know why it's a 2. There's a little bit of a print defect right near his head, but to me, like, under the standards of SGC, that would probably be a 4. So I just thought that those are pretty funny to look at those 2 next to each other. And then the back, same cards. The Cy Young has schmutz all over the back, and the Ruleback has none. Also pulled up these 2. This really nicely centered, sharp Hank Aaron is a 4, and this wildly off-centered, honest corner Ted Williams is also a 4, apparently. So you get those weird anomalies. And this is an SGC. Obviously, the Hodges is not, but this is an overgraded card with a 0. A cert that begins with a 0. It's probably a 5, which is what it should be. It's even less centered than the Hodges, which is why I brought the Hodges in. And then there's this card on the left is not mine. It recently sold in a Sterling auction about a week after the end of the National. And the card on the right is mine, and Greg knows it well because he was next to me when I bought it. I paid $21.50 for that card. And thank you, Greg, for saving me $50 there. That was nice. By convincing Tim Payne that we were such good guys. We're all good friends. So anyway, so $21.50 for that. The one on the left is a 4.5. It's not a 4.5 if the standard of my 3 is it's almost the exact same thing. I mean, if you look at it, there's more staining on the 4.5. There's a little more corner wear on mine. But to be honest with you, the difference is not $21.50. The difference is that this sold in Sterling auction, final price with buyer's premium, $46.80. So a card that looks identical to a card that was $21.50 is $46.80 because of what is on the slab. So that was my little run of cards. I thought that was instructive. This is the one. It's a 4. If you saw it up close, you'd see this staining. And the guy had it at a 4 price. It doesn't sell that often, so it's hard to really comp it that well. But he was around a 4 price. And I said to him, it's an old slab, old style slab. Cert number is really low. This would never be a 4. It's really a 2. And like I said, he looked at me like I had 3 heads, and I had to negotiate. I was negotiating with the guy. He wanted to get money from me, but I kind of overpaid, I think, because I paid probably somewhere around a 3 for what is really should be a 2. But the funny part was that I tried to use the concept of old slabs versus new slabs on an old dealer, and he didn't have any. He didn't even know what I was talking about. So anyway, so the question that's in the name of the of the video, and you put me on the spot pretty early on, Mike, is the registry obsolete, and why is that important? And my answer to your challenge before is that the reason, and I sort of reference this with the Will Chamberlain, is because there's a lot of money at stake here, hundreds of thousands of dollars at stake. So if your set registry copy of like the 1950 Bowman set has a bunch of old graded cards, but you're still number one, you're going to get a premium if you're in an auction, even though your cards really aren't the grades that they are now, that they would be if they were graded now. So there's the person who's number one in the set, the person who's number 100 in the set. It only depends on when they were graded. And in reality, it's not an objective standard anymore. And the registry ultimately is costing people hundreds of thousands of dollars if they're buying, full sets in auctions that are based on what the registry level is at that point. And yeah, the registry sometimes is fun, and you use it as a checklist, and some people use it as like a nice competition. But honestly, there's a lot of money at stake here, and I think that's the problem, and that's why I think it's important that we point these things out, and we point out that the registry being obsolete is a real thing. I think that's my position.
I just had this epiphany, and I'm like, who's the sucker in all of these equations? Who is the sucker in the Chamberlain purchase?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't blame the person selling it. They're just trying to get the most money they can get for their card. They're putting it at auction, and the market will determine the value of that. But to me, that's such a flawed, and that person who's buying it is the sucker. And it may be one of our good friends. I doubt it, for an $800,000 card. Oh, Greg bought it.
I just wrote down this note, Mike.
Yeah.
I said, whose fault is this?
Yes.
It's ours. I said,
Yes.
It's ours. We're not using our own eyes. And we have given over our own brains to a third-party company. And for some people, that might be fine. But the question, the big question, the real elephant, the registry is obsolete. It doesn't mean anything. Just like that 4 on the Jim Brown doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. But the question is, why do we continue to do this? Why does somebody get a card that has a print line on it and a nick on the corner, and it gets a 10? And then they list it, and somebody goes, man, that has a print line and a ding on the corner, but they still pay 10 prices. Why? When are we going to take back control? And this is what I've been beating. The drum I have been beating is we gave control of our hobby to PSA. We gave all collectors just gave it over. And some people are saying, well, not me. I do it raw. Well, the prices of everything, the direction of everything is all tied into the grading companies, whether we like it or not. And I do think that the grading companies provide a service. They tell me if there's a pinhole. They tell me if there's a wrinkle or there's a crease. They tell me if there's wax on the back. They do tell me some things. They tell me if there's mark, if there's eraser, if it's authentic, if it's been trimmed, if it's full size. They do provide me some information, but it's only half of the information. And why do we allow them to have full control when they only deserve to have about half of the information? And we're just blindly continuing to just follow them like, cows headed off to slaughter. I don't get it.
Yeah. Again, if I'll just use a recent example for me, the maze, I'll go back to it. Why did I pay what I paid? Did I know comps were higher or lower? Yes. Did I care in the moment? I wanted that car. I wanted that card. And I thought it looked like a 3 on the front, and I was willing to pay more than a 1. At the end of the day, we're the ones that decide what we're willing to pay for a card, not Card Ladder or VCP or whatever. Why should that dictate to me what I should pay for a card? And yes, I agree with Greg wholeheartedly and everything he just said about we're the we're the lambs being led to slaughter, the cows being led to slaughter. We're falling into, well, this card in this grade, whatever the number says, should be this much money. And it's, you know, when I buy a card, I want to use the lowest comp. When a dealer's selling a card, he wants to use the highest sale for that card, right? And somewhere in the middle. But why is a card even worth that to begin with? Why have 41 play ball DiMaggios gone nuts, and they've gotten where I just don't want to pay that anymore as a card I'm looking for that I would love to own? I'm just like, no, I'm not. I don't want to pay that anymore. Well, that's what it goes for. Why? Why is it that's, I don't know that there's an answer. That's probably a rhetorical question, but it's, why is it that much more?
We're in a consolidation movement right now.
Okay.
And the consolidation movement, you can buy a 62 Alkaline for like $12 because everybody's selling those types of cards in exchange to pile a bunch of money together and buy the big card. And I think it's the same thing as the Facebook, Instagram, social media world, where we see, oh, that person bought their girlfriend 2 dozen roses for Valentine's Day, so I got to do three dozen. It's like we're competing with what other people are doing, and we see this eye candy all over the place, and everybody just wants to be a participant. And all of a sudden, the 61 or 62 Alkaline doesn't seem that sexy anymore. Seems kind of boring. It shouldn't be that way. The savvy collector right now, I think one of the opportunities, it's always be a contrarian. You know, Mike, you're a finance guy. You always do. You should be doing what everybody's the opposite of what they're doing. If someone went around and just bought up all like the 1960s, 60 to 69 Willie Mays cards and Hank Aaron cards right now, at some point, there's got to be a reverse consolidation. I mean, Adam's Splendid Sports, he bought a 52 Mantle. He consolidated a bunch into that. And he said recently, maybe I might want to sell it. I just have too much of my collection tied up in one card. I should sell it and go buy a bunch of stuff that I like. There might be a reverse consolidation movement, but recently there's been a consolidation movement. And I think it's our fault. I think it's YouTube's fault. It's beautiful. 64 Alkaline, $60.
I can't. 60 is expensive. I put a high sticker on that because it's absolutely beautiful, and it's a 6. And honestly, you can get this card on eBay for like $45 in a 6. Yeah, and I'm like, I couldn't believe it. I put it into grade because I thought it could 7, and I thought it would be like $100 card or $150 card. It's barely 50.
Nobody wants like, McCovey. They don't want Marichal. They don't want K-Line. They don't want those guys. They want Mantle. They want rookie cards. They want big cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about your consolidation. I do agree that's happening more because of the reasons you're stating about it's out there on all the social media things and people are seeing it. I think, but you got to be able to be willing to sell stuff. And some people are, right? I want to add a 41 play ball DiMaggio to all my other play balls. I don't want to sell all my other play balls to get the DiMaggio.
Yeah.
You know,
you're not a consolidator, Mike.
You're not. You're a hoarder. You're not a consolidator.
There's a reason that this exists.
But that's how you like to collect, and that's great. And that's one of the reasons that on my video Friday, I really pumped up Mookie's pinholes and card back writing movement, and Keith, Lonely Basement Baseball Cards, who collects, Quaker Dave Winfield cards and Purina Don Mattingly cards, because that's still cool. Like, if we only focus on the autographed 52 Topps Mantle as that's cool and everything else isn't, then the hobby is in trouble. We have to make sure that people are still realizing that these other cards are cool too. And they may not be cool to everyone, but if they're cool to you, then they're cool. I don't know. I know one other person who collects pirate cards from Allen and Ginter. And I love them. And everyone else looks at me like I'm insane. And I'm okay with that because I'm having a blast. And if I'm having a blast, then it's checking the box for my life. Now, from an investment perspective, completely different conversation. From a liquidity perspective, completely different conversation. It is much harder to liquidate that 64 tops Alkaline than it would be a 55 tops Roberto Clemente. So it adds a different element, but we can't continue to use everyone else as our measuring stick. You know, my students, I give them timed tests for keyboarding every week. And I say, your goal is not to break the world record. It's to break your record. And we have to use ourselves as a measuring stick. And I don't think we're doing that. And that's a dangerous, slippery slope for the hobby as a whole, because people are going to go, I can't compete with that. And they're going to bail. And they shouldn't have to compete with that. They just need to have fun.
There's two pieces of wisdom I need to drop on everybody that I've said before, but not everybody watches everything. Number one is Dr. Beckett was in this room a number of years ago, and he's seen everything. Like nothing's like, I'm all excited to show him my stuff. And he had almost a, yeah, it's nice, you know, kind of very nonchalant attitude. And it didn't upset me. It was more, I asked some questions to try to get behind that. And he goes, Mike, you don't need to worry what I think. You need to build the best collection for you, is what he told me. And that has stuck with me for years because I went, you're right. And, you know, people that poo-poo on other people on social media and, oh, that's ugly. And you have 10 guys that say it's great, 10 guys that say it's terrible, whatever. Why do we just shouldn't care anymore? And it's like, build your own stuff. When I go look at collections, the other point I wanted to make, when I go look at other collections and people they know I'm into cards and, you know, oh yeah, I have my dad's stuff or whatever. And it's, you know, 80s stuff or, you know, junk wax and others. And they want me to look through it. And I do. And it's like, dude, these are so cool. And they're like, the next question is immediately, are they worth anything? I said, I always tell them being cool and being valuable are two very different things. A card can be very cool. It can be awesome. It can have nostalgia. It can have all the things and be very neat. That doesn't translate directly to value, unfortunately, for these people that are trying to, you know, see if they have anything of value. I see it all the time when I look at other people's cards, and it's like, you know, I'm sorry, cool and valuable aren't the same thing. And you need to build a collection. You need to build the best collection for you, whether it's pinhole cards or writing on the back cards or whatever it is. I like to buy low grade Hall of Famers, you know, I'd like to buy high grade Hall of Famers, but
when I joke about your PSA 8 Burt Blyleven from 1987, Mike, it's just a joke. It's a love tap.
I actually wonder what my 87 Burt Blyleven is. What card number is that? We can go pull it. 1987 tops.
Don't worry about it.
No, now you got me curious what my
While you're in there, grab the Earl Weaver.
I have Earl Weaver, yes. Oh, he's number
I know you do.
25. Okay.
I saw the pickup video when you got it.
Yeah.
It was a 7 or an 8, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'll buy 8s all day. They're near mint cards. What's wrong with that?
Nothing. You're happy. I'm happy.
It just depends on when they were graded. That's all.
I know. Here he is. Oh, I got an 8. An 8. I would stand up, but I'm not wearing pants, so I can't do that. 87 tops, Burt Blyleven.
Nice.
And nobody else wants to own this card but me. That's
Yeah.
not completely true, but it's pretty darn true. This isn't Mays or Mantle or Aaron or Koufax.
Close to true.
Close to true. But I love having this. This fits
Exactly.
me and what I'm
That's-
doing. And
Yes.
it doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. It doesn't.
Exactly. I agree.
All
And
right.
that's why I said on Friday, stop bashing how other people collect. If Mike has this goal of collecting every Hall of Fame card, for 80 decades or whatever it is you're doing,
I'll go there.
and you're having fun with it, that's the only thing that matters. Why are we passing judgment? And so many people said, who rips on how other people collect? And I'm like, dude, are you serious? People do all the time.
Go read
And they
any of my
shouldn't.
comments sections.
Exactly.
But here is what your point about earlier is this card. Julie is not going to get anything for this card when she tries to sell it. $5, $10, maybe. You know, I have no idea what I paid for it, but maybe 20. I might have paid 20. So we have to ask ourselves. I did that completely knowing that, and I don't give a rat's ass that it's not going to be worth that someday because I'm enjoying it. This is a hobby. By and large, Julie's going to do just fine. Every card I own is not going to be a winner, so to speak, from a profit standpoint. And I didn't buy this as an investment, obviously. I mean, right? I didn't go, man, Blyleven might have a couple more wins in him at the age of 77 or whatever, however old he is right now. No, I didn't care. And I don't. People can't understand. If you say you don't care, I do care about the money. I do at the end of the day. But on a card like this, they would say, well, why'd you buy that? You could have saved up your money and bought a card that will blah, blah, blah. Well, that wasn't on the registry. This is in the 5 decades set. This is in a project that I'm working on that I have passion about and that I love. I don't care. It's my money too, by the way. So, you know, criticize all you want. By the way, this is a 4 serial number. So it's probably like a 2, you know, an 8, really a 2 probably. For 87 tops with a 4 serial number.
If you're going to use the registry for fun and to create a set that's unique to you, then more power to you. But if you're going to use the registry to try to up the value of whatever it is that you're selling in some, you know, auction platform, then that's my position. It's obsolete. You can't trust it anymore. So
that's
there we
up
go.
to other
I mean,
people to decide that it's obsolete. It's up to the public to realize that it's obsolete. It's if it is the number 1 set and they advertise it, it's up to someone else to determine if that adds value to that or not. Right? Yeah. I mean,
well, they should be looking at every card is what it is. You know, look at the certs. Look at the card, and then, you know, you make a decision. It's like the savvy collector. You got to be savvy. You can't spend $800,000 on a Wilt Chamberlain that's off center just because it has a 10 on it.
And yet it will continue to happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, it will continue to happen, but we have drum beaters like Greg, hopefully educating the public.
By the way, I'm number 4 on the 80s decade set of Hall of Fame. Number 4. So when I sell it, it's going to be the number 4 80s decade set ever.
I'm giving you a slow clap, Mike. I'm giving you a slow clap.
I'm gonna make sure to tell Julie to market it that way when she puts it on Golden. You know.
Well, by the time Julie is selling it, we will have educated everybody about the obsolete nature of the registry. So she's going to have to come up with some other gimmick for it. But
yeah, send them off to
the ultimately, that's our opinion. You know, Dan, you feel that it's obsolete. I feel that it's a ballpark. You know, I think that the number 2 set might be the best set, might be the 5th best set, but it's probably better than the 20th best set. But
I don't know if that's true. I don't know.
I think everything is a ballpark now. Again, it's approximately here. It's pin the tail on the donkey with a blindfold on. Is what it is. It's about in this area.
But where does that have to do with the registry?
Well, with the ranking of the registry, the number 1 ranked set doesn't necessarily mean it's the best set. It might be the 4th best set, but the number 1 ranked set is one of the best. It might be the best, but it isn't automatically the best anymore because of the lack of consistency over the years of how cards have been evaluated, in my opinion.
And on that, I think we can wrap it up. We're 8 seconds short of an hour, so
Well, all right.
You know the algorithm says if you go over an hour, nobody watches. Well, now nobody's watching it, so
No,
That's
well.
okay.
went over an hour. Gentlemen, I enjoy this kind of conversation immensely with anyone, but with you two of the smartest and most experienced people in the hobby. I do love these kinds of conversations, and I want to thank you for coming in and spending some time with us here at Four Collectors.
You're welcome.
I could do this for hours, so thanks for including me.
All right, guys, I'm gonna close it up.
Love the hobby. Keep collecting baseball cards.
But hey, we want to keep the lights on here at Four Collector Studios, so hit the like button for us, guys.
So thanks everybody for coming, and yeah, we'll see you next time on Four Collectors.
All right, guys, have a great rest of your night. Subscribe to the Four Collectors channel if you haven't done so yet, and we'll see you soon.
All right, guys. Clementi Collector has said we hit a grand slam, so that makes me feel good.